Okay, welcome to probably one of the most exciting videos that we filmed in some time now. This video, or this assortment of parts here, has been a long time in the making. Long story short, me and Ilya are building identical, well mostly identical, K24 blocks for our Time Attack builds next year, and we were extremely lucky and privileged to team up with Racewing Brands Netherlands, and we come to quite a nice lovely deal, and they gave us a package that we couldn't refuse, which has allowed us to build probably two extremely high spec K24 engines for our Time Attack builds. So I want to thank Racewing Brands for getting on board and believing in our vision. So what have Racewing Brands supplied us? So we've supplied the K24 engines. Now this is where the differences start to go. Ilya's got a K24 out of an Accord Type S, which the only difference that we can see is that this has got oil squirters on the crank, and the crank is slightly heavier. And this is my K20A4, which is out of a Honda Odyssey automatic, which has got a slightly lighter crank but no oil squirters. And other than that, most of the parts are going to remain identical between the builds. So we've gone with a set of Wiseco forward pistons. These are, I believe, 10:1 compression ratio. Again, Wiseco supplied by Racewing Brands. And then for the rods, we've gone with the best rods that we perceive in the business, which is the boost line connecting rods. Again, a fantastic rod, and even more impressed, especially the Wisecos, is that they already come pre-balanced out of the box, and they both come with a lovely spec sheet which gives you all the measurements and all the finer details when it comes to the weights of these rods. So fantastic that for us as amateur engine builders, we've not got to mess about weighing stuff. It comes already done out of the box. Also supplied from Racewing Brands is the ARP head bolts and the ACL bearings. Obviously we've got the mains, we've got the rods, and we've also got the thrust washers, which are currently over on the bench. As part of the package deal from Racewing Brands is they supplied us a full Supertech valve train. Now this is the top spec valve train that Supertech do. It's got the Inconel valves on the underneath. We've also got the Supertech valve guides in there, the Supertech stem seals. We've got the dual valve spring on both the intake and exhaust, and to top it off, we've got the titanium retainers. Now, if you come and zoom into the block here, you can probably see most K-series blocks, they're an open deck. So they have an open sort of gallery all the way around the cylinders here. And we had Spec J Motorsport up in Bishop Auckland, that sort of way, logo on the screen. And we sent both of the blocks to Jonathan, and we've had a CSC, a custom CSS deck insert put into the block. Now this is an insert which goes roughly, I think, about 3/4 of an inch deep into the block, and it supports the top end of the cylinders. So under the extremely high boost that we're going to be chucking through these engines, you know, 2-bar or bust, if I say so myself, that puts a lot of stress on the cylinders, and a lot of K-series fail because the top of the liners, they tend to just split after getting a load of stress because of all the boost. So it's not quite sleeve. There's some pros and cons of sleeves, and no doubt we'll have some people in the comments telling us that we should have went sleeves, but we've not gone for sleeves for maintenance purposes. And with sleeves, they can tend to move around over time, whereas a deck insert is not quite strong as a sleeve, but I dare say probably more reliable than a sleeve. Again, it depends on who's doing the engine work, and considering we're absolute amateurs coming to this stuff, this was the best way of doing it. Plus Spec J also did us a blinding deal on the deck inserts and doing all the machine work on the head. And not supplied by Racewing Brands, but equally worth mention is cam wise. We must have spent weeks and weeks and weeks going through what cams we should use, and no matter who you speak to, everyone gives a different opinion, but the cam that came up the most between everyone we spoke to was the Drag Cartel 4.5s. So that's exactly what we've gone with. And yeah, so I want to thank Racewing Brands for getting on board, and without further ado, we're going to finally get these engines put back together. Are we filming or what? Yeah. So, like typical car enthusiasts, we've had to lay all our pictures out on the bench here so we can get that Instagram worthy picture. This is essentially a lot of money of parts, probably the most money that I've ever put into an engine, but that also shows our commitment to making sure that these work. So yeah, to give you a rundown, obviously the Wiseco pistons are laid out with the boost line rods, drag cartel 4.5 camshafts, the ACL bearings. Now we've decided to use all genuine Honda stuff on this, so that even goes right down to the valve train. We've got brand spanking new lost motion assembly springs, even down to the bolts that holds the windage tray on to the girdle. All brand spanking new, all genuine Honda. Brand new mains bolts, even though everyone told us we didn't need these because they're not stretch bolts, but for the price they were, for a bit of insurance and a bit of peace of mind, we've gone with brand spanking new genuine Honda mains. All genuine Honda timing chain, timing guides, because you need a mixture of the K24 and K20 stuff, I believe, to do the sort of swap, and even down to the tensioner for the oil pump. Genuine Honda oil pump, which Ilya has already done some modifications on. It has to be notched to fit the K24 block, which means the balance shaft goes in the bin, and we've also got the appropriate hardware to get rid of all the balance shaft stuff. The only thing we're missing here is the windage tray because someone forgot to order it. But yeah, I want to thank Torque GT for sorting us out a pretty sick deal on all the genuine Honda stuff, and for sorting it out. I know we sent a lot of questions back and forth to Matt, which probably annoyed the shit out of him, but we got it done. We got all the bits here, all overnight parts from Japan in a couple of weeks. And other notable things is, again, why put all this money into a new engine and not put a bit of bling on it? I actually picked these up earlier this year when I went to Florida, and I had these delivered to my hotel, and these are a set of Skunk 2 K24 billet timing chain covers. I also got the camshafts at the same time. And then why then go through all that effort and not balance the rotating assembly? So Ilya took the cranks and had a place, I believe, near Cambridge, and had the crankshafts all balanced with the flywheel and with the clutches. Now I've got a brand spanking new clutch and flywheel from Exidi, which balanced absolutely perfectly, and I think my crank had needed minimal.
It did not even need any balancing. They tested it and they said the flywheel was mint.
So crankshaft mint, and they've also typically they have some ball bearings inside the crankshaft. And what they've done is that they've removed them to basically get rid of all of the oily gunk outside of the crank journals, which I think we've got a clip we'll put in now. And these cranks had a lot of crap in there, so we're happy we've got that done. So obviously that's crap that we don't go around all these brand spanking new components, and obviously we've got some grub screws to put in there as well. And head gasket wise, we've gone with Cosworth, which is a 1.1mm head gasket, and yeah, this should really, I mean, we've planned to run these engines at about 600 horsepower, which, going by today's standards of the type of power that K Series are making, is quite tame. But 600 horsepower for UK competition is about all we need. But the way we plan to run the Haltech ECUs is to have 600 as our base power, and then to have maybe 1 or 2 boost levels in maybe 50 horsepower increments. So we've got 657, 750, 800 if we need it. Again, 800, 900 plus, that's probably sort of like dart and sleeve territory, but as part of the Race Winning Brands deal, we didn't really have enough budget to go with the sleeves, so that's another reason why we went to CSS. But yeah, we've got a lovely package here to do minimum 600 horsepower reliably, and then we've got that bit of, what's that word looking for, headroom to just push it that a little bit higher. Again, 600 horsepower, UK competition, fine. European competition, fine. Maybe when it comes to Wagon Attack, it might not be enough, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the parts laid out. We are now going to start assembling these engines. We're going to measure the crank, the best of our ability anyway. We're going to measure the rod journals. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to build the short end, the bottom end, and we'll then go on to the cylinder head stuff. bolts, brand new. So obviously we're plastic gauging the bearing journals just to make sure that we're in bearing tolerance. Brand new mains bolts. These are torqued to, as you see, I've printed off some literature. And these are, the M10s are 29 Newton meters plus 56 degrees angle. We was a bit confused because to us that means they're a stretch bolt, but we confirmed with two different people and these are fine for being reused. So we're not too concerned about that now. But yeah, 29 Newton meters and 56 degrees, so these will stretch. We've got the girdle on. We've just put a very light film of oil on the bearings of the girdle. That means that the plastic gauge isn't going to stick after we remove it, and we're going to be able to get a reading on these bearings. That, whatever that is, 0.5 of foul?
Yeah, whatever that is. Same, they're all the same.
To be fair, yes. So we're happy with clearances. We're well within spec. So now we're happy that we're in spec. We're now going to assemble the bottom ends. So obviously make sure we've got a lot of lube in there for first start protection.
That's what she said.
That's what she said. We've got our thrust washers in there the right way in. And then basically repeat the process that we've just done 15 minutes ago. And obviously tighten all this up in sequence. And then once done that, we'll make sure the crank rotates. And a very important thing to do is chase all your threads. I'm not going to tell you why, but as we've discovered, it's extremely important that you chase all your threads before you start putting the engine together, otherwise you'll spend half hour trying to rectify a cock up. So yeah, let's get this torqued up and then we'll make sure the crank spins nice and free. Okay, following week, last clip we got the bottom ends all tied up, cranks are in, torqued down to spec, and we've clearanced them. Now, the next important thing is we need to do the clearances on the connecting rods. But what we're going to do is we're going to gap the piston rings first. So we need to calculate our ring gap so that depending on the application of engine, the more heat it's going to generate and the more those rings are going to expand. So in a turbocharged engine, the gap's going to be slightly bigger than if you were building a non-turbo engine. So the way we do that is, there's some calculations here, but I'll talk you through my layman's method. Is we know the bore size is 87.5. We need to divide that by 25.4 to convert it to an imperial measurement because America. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go for the third one down from the bottom, so circle track drag race, which has here other piston manufacturers. Obviously Wiseco's the boys, but we're new to this, so we're just looking at other manufacturers' guidelines to see what the consensus is. Forced induction, everyone then recommends to for the first top ring multiply that figure there by 0.0055, yeah, and that's going to give us a ring gap of 0.0189. So we're just going to round it up to 0.019, as you see here. And for the same again to do the bottom ring, divide by 25.4 equals, and then we're going to multiply that by 0.0065 for the second ring, and that's giving us a clearance of roughly, well, that's 0.22.
To start off with these engines, we're going to be quite moderate power because again, UK competition, I don't think we're going to need more than 500-600 horsepower. And then for European and international competition, I dare say the competition is a bit more fierce, especially in the higher classes that we would be in. We're probably going to have to push these engines towards that sort of 700-800 horsepower power goal to be competitive in those competitions. So yeah, we've got a typical cheap eBay, AliExpress piston ring grinder, and then these can take quite a while to grind down, so I'm going to do something that probably a lot of engine builders are going to cringe at watching on camera, but I've learnt my lesson with the micro engine. That's just to be very frugal with taking the very small increments off and then measuring it. So that's the rings all done. I dare say that my barbaric method of grinding the rings was a lot quicker than your way.
It was not. You literally, I was one ring behind.
Yeah, one ring
so,
behind.
I mean, if you had another 10 engines to build today, then yes. Anyways.
Now the rings are done. As you can see, I've paired them all up to the pistons because we've also paired the rods to the pistons by weight. So each individual rod and piston is the same weight. I think there's one which is 0.5 or a gram over, but we haven't got the equipment here to make it perfect, so it's gonna do for a hobbyist or semi-professional. So I'm gonna get all these rings on the pistons, I'm gonna get the rods on the pistons, and then we can start inserting each individual piston hopefully into its last home, and then we'll go through the next step and we'll discuss that when we get there. So yeah, rings on pistons, pistons in engine. What we need to do is we need to gap the piston rings. So obviously each ring is broken to be able to insert the ring onto the piston. And yeah, these basically, the holes, the gap in the piston needs to point in specific directions in accordance to the other four rings, and that's important for compression and also to reduce oil blow by. So obviously Wiseco here provide a little handy little piece of paper which shows you how to position all of the rings, and in this particular case it is the top ring. So if engine this way, top ring is at 3 o'clock, the secondary ring is at 9 o'clock, the corrugated piece, the oil separator, there's a gap in that, that's at 6 o'clock, and then the top oil ring on the scraper is at roughly 10:30, and then the very small ring at the bottom of the scraper is at 1:30. So I'm guessing everyone has got their own sort of ways of doing things, but you know, with these being parts kindly provided by Wiseco, it only feels right to us to follow their advice. So that's exactly what we're going to do. That's the piston rings all gapped with the help of the helper lines. I can now quickly just look at it one last time before we put it in, and they're all in the right orientation. So obviously we've put a bit of assembly lube down the bores, a bit of assembly lube on this bearing, and now so I'm trying not to touch the rings, and then using this handy tool that Ilya's bought, what you do is put a piston in, push it down, voila. That's a lot better than using them old school expanders. So yeah, that's one in. I'm going to get all four in, spin the engine over, and then we'll get the rod caps on with their bearings, and then we're going to plastic gauge the rods, and then hopefully we're all good.
We're transparent. We always show people everything we do, if it's a fuck up or not fuck up. So
next step would be to rotate the crank so we can do cylinders 2 and 3. However, see if you can spot the problem here. Yep, doesn't want to go that way. Let's try the opposite way. Just doesn't want to go. So it turns out, after a quick bit of Googling, that to fit Wiseco's and boost lines, you need to notch the block. Now, that would have been extremely handy information to have before we got this far, but yeah, I suppose it is what it is. So we've basically got to undo all of what we've got done so far. So the piston's got to come out, the rod's got to come out, the girdle's got to come out, the crank's got to come out, and then we've got to get the die grinder down the bores, clearance for the rod, and then put it all back together again. And that really screws over our plan for today, which was to get the bottom ends done and the heads on. So yeah, I did throw my toys out the pram, quite literally, but nothing we can really do about it, because obviously the engine's not going to rotate on its own. But frustrating, but I guess this is why the professionals probably would have foresaw this, and we didn't. But no point crying about it. Let's just crack on.
now you know.
Now you know. Now you know. Okay, so we've just notched cylinder 1 on my block, and you can sort of see here the material we've taken out. So a bit into the aluminium and a bit into the, obviously, the iron ductile sleeve, whatever, the factory sleeve. And we've just mocked up the crank and obviously one rod and piston back in the block, and we now have full rotation. So we just wanted to do that to make sure that the amount of material that we have removed was enough. And it is. In fact, if anything, it's probably a bit too much, because we've got that 3mm clearance in some places, but I think that's more than enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this block back up. Obviously we don't want any filings to get in the oil galleries and journals. And then I'll do Ilya's next, and we'll take these blocks back outside again, give them a complete once over, cleaned with a lot of brake cleaner and a lot of compressed air. And then we can put these blocks back together. Now, luckily, up until this point, obviously we know all of our clearances are fine. So it's a case of, once we've cleaned the blocks and we're happy there's no metal filings or anything inside these journals, it's just a case of putting the engines back together, because we've disassembled the engines, we've laid it all out, we know what bearing goes where. So it's going to be about an hour of grinding between the two blocks, and probably going to take us about half hour to get back to the point we were about 20 minutes ago. But it is what it is when you build these engines. If you're building a K24 with boost lines, you're going to have to notch the blocks. So hopefully you've caught this video just in time before you've got to the point where you've assembled your rotating assembly and it doesn't turn. Now you know why. Right, let's crack on. Okay, so insert 2 hours later clip. But yeah, we obviously stripped the blocks down. We've got the bottom of the cylinders notched, and as you can see here, we've skipped a few steps because, you know, that error or that misjudgment put us back a few hours from where we wanted to be today. So the blocks back together, all torqued up, and would you know it, it rotates. Obviously it would have been better to show you with the without the windage tray on. But
just turn it around so we can see the pistons going up and down.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So anyway, up to this point, the bottom end is, apart from the oil pumps and the other bits and bobs from underneath, is complete. So from here on out, we're going to be focused on the top end. So obviously we've got the ARP studs to go in, and the head gasket and the head stuff, but apart from the oil pump and the sump on the bottom, we can't put the sump on to the chain on. So oil pump on the bottom, and then the bottom end is complete. So if you're building a K24 with boost lines, it seems to be a boost line specific thing that needs to be done. It's not a bad thing, it just means there's a lot more material there to make the rod a lot stronger. So it is what it is. I had to notch the block on the Micros engine. I just kind of thought because the bore was so big on these that we wouldn't have to notch the block, but I was wrong. So yeah, home time for us, but in the next clip we'll be putting the cylinder heads on. Okay, so it's now time to assemble the top end of the engine, and of course we've also got some trick stuff to go in the top end. So in my particular case, I'm using a K20 AWD cylinder head, which is the PRB2 casting. So this comes off a factory UK spec, I believe EP3 Type R, maybe DC5 as well. And I just chose this head because I think, apart from the K20 Z4, this is the better flowing cylinder, the second best flowing OEM cylinder head. And we've got a full Super Tech valve train in there, the high spec one. I can't remember which exactly one it is, but we've got Inconel valves and titanium retainers with the dual valve springs. Now this particular kit has been spec'd to work with the Drag Cartel 4.5 camshafts, because these do require, it gets ahead of me, but there's a measurement for how much tension the springs, or the clamping force, opening force, whatever it is, and that's been spec'd to go with the Drag Cartel 4.5s, because these basically, when you buy these, they specify which spring kit you need, the minimum force, and also their maximum lift and duration. So again, these work well with the Super Techs, and all this lovely work here is also been done by Spec J, same company who did our CNC decking program, the deck insert. And Spec J, Johnny, has also done the cylinder heads, full 3-angle valve job, and essentially these have been set up for us to just drop on the engines. If I have any machining footage, I'll put it in now, but I don't think Johnny tends to film anything. So yeah, bottom end's done, top end's assembled now. So head gasket wise, we've gone with a Cosworth, is it 1.1 mil, and this should work lovely with the bore work that we've had done. So yeah, let's get the top ends built, and then we'll then come back when we start to put the timing chains and stuff on. Torque down, and we've got the rocker assembly on. K series are a bit different to a lot of traditional engines. Usually your cam journals are cast and machined as part of the cylinder head. Now the Honda K series, the entire valve train assembly comes out, it's separate from the head, which is a good design, because if you have a catastrophic failure at the top end, then, you know, let's say you've had a lot of machine work done to the cylinder head, all you've really got to do is go find another K-series valve train assembly and then swap it over. Fantastic. Whereas with a normal engine, if you have a catastrophic failure at the top end, ruin the cam journals, and then it'd be a case of either scrap the head or a ton of machine work. So that's a real nice thing on Hondas. So yeah, we got the Drag Cartel 4.5s. Why the 4.5s? Because, you know, we like to party.
Party!
Party. We're going to install these.
Do you know which one's which?
They do say exhaust on them in the intake. I'm just trying to see where it says on this one.
Because obviously professionals would have been able to tell by just looking at it. We are not them.
Drag Cartel. So yeah, on the end of the cam it says there, in for intake. And this is the exhaust side. Intake wants to be this side. Get your lube. Lube it up a bit. Talking or not?
You want to talk?
Yeah, fuck it. So we've skipped and filmed a few steps that we should have really filmed, but basically, cylinder head's on, the cams are in, that's all torqued down, and we've got the engine all timed up to all brand spanking new OEM Honda stuff supplied by Torque GT. So shout out to Matt and the team at Torque GT for doing us a blinding price on all the genuine Honda stuff. And yeah, we're literally 3 components away from finishing this engine, and that is the timing chain cover, the sump and the rock cover, and we are pretty much buttoned up. And of course there's no point putting all this effort into a lovely engine like this without putting a bit of bling on it. So
Bling bling!
I picked up these covers for both of us earlier in this year in my trip to the States, and yeah, bit of bling bling for the engine. So yeah, seconds away from having this all put back together and finished. So yeah, let's get this timing chain covers on, the sump on, rock cover, and let's finish this engine build. Ta-da! So, long time in the making, but still need to give it a bit of a freshen up here.
Are you gonna do that? I'm just gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, I want to paint it so it looks nice. We did have it all vapor blasted, but
Yeah.
obviously vapor blasted takes a lot of time, and I don't have a lot of patience. So we're gonna paint this up. Obviously, we're not going to paint the new billet stuff, but yeah. But I think that's going to be it for this video for an engine assembly by an idiot, 2 idiots. So yeah, I'm going to move these over to the front, get some nice pictures of them both together, and then we'll wrap up this video. So there we go, 2 fully built K24s built by 2 utter idiots. Now this is the second engine that I've built from scratch, and yeah, hopefully they're going to work. We followed the instructions to the book. Obviously we're not engine builders, and I know engine builders have their own different ways of doing things outside of what the instruction manual says, but unfortunately for me at least, I'm not going to see the results of the 3 days assembling this engine till next year. Ilya is more than likely going to see the results from his engine hopefully in a month or so, because he's keen to get out testing this year. My car is in very much a state of disrepair at the moment, but that's going to be changing quite rapidly over the next few weeks. So yeah, obviously want to thank the sponsors for the massive help that we've had with these engines. It truly wouldn't be possible without the minds at Race Winning Brands. They're a fantastic bunch of people, and we're ever so grateful to be working with such fantastic partners, and especially as companies as big as Race Winning Brands. So obviously Race Winning Brands has supplied the pistons, the rods, the ARPs, and a lot of bits and bobs going this engine. Can't forget Wagon Attack GT for supplying all of the OEM Honda timing chains and the guides and the pump. And obviously thank you Spec J for machine work on the block, machine work on the valve train and the cylinder heads, and obviously there's various other people that have helped us with smaller minor parts with this build. But yeah, thank you very much. We can't wait really to put 2 bar of boost through these and send the rod to Mars before Elon Musk. No, we're not selling rods, because honestly, if this engine was to go bang, I really could not afford to replace it as quick as I can with the micro engines, which are literally 50 quid off eBay on a pallet. So yeah, with that being said, thanks for watching. If you want to see Ilya's version of building his engines, there's a link up here, card, whatever, link down below. Make sure you go watch Ilya's version of putting his engines together. On top of that, thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, share, all that stuff. See you in next video. Love you, bye.